Okay, we have got Stephen Barnard, which is my third author interview. And I'm only doing these up to Christmas. I think I haven't got any more plans. So I think I've got like Ben Young and Chris Jones and Sarah Jules after this. And that's pretty much a wrap for the year. So thank you very much for doing it. First and foremost, I'll say what I do on every single interview that I've done so far, and that is I am not a host. If I'm not even going to try to be because I know I'd be really crap at it. Um, but yeah, so Stephen, usually I'd say I kind of open the floor to you first off, but I'm not going to ask you to kind of tell us about yourself. We already know who you are anyway, and the majority of my Patreon guys do as well. Um, so, if anything, I'm going to pass over to the floor to you first, and just kind of what's going on with Stephen. I suppose what's new. We know that you've got the Ghost in the Post thing going on because that's being posted here, there, and everywhere at the moment. So it'd be good to get a little bit of insight of where that came about. Also, any kind of like events, I suppose, that are coming up, or anything new, works in progress, anything that you can tell us.
Yeah, sure. Bit busy as always. I'm always trying to be doing something. I say Ghost in the Post. I'm not quite sure where the genesis of that was, other than I had an idea to do that kind of haunted house story in the sort of in like the letter and journal kind of style. I was sort of thinking of the of Stephen King's short story Jerusalem's Lot and the first story in Night Shift, and that's written like that. And so I had it in mind. I didn't know it was going to be this kind of subscription idea, um, but it just sort of took off as I was doing it. I thought, yeah, maybe that'll work. I guess it was a case of wanting to do something a little bit different. I'm always trying to do little bit things a little bit different, just because if I just do the same thing over and over, I can't really expect any change or necessarily new readers or whatever it might be. So I'm always on the lookout for, I suppose, a new hook or whatever, or a different angle. And so that's
Yeah.
what Ghost in the Post started off as. And then it became quite a big undertaking, and really a labor of love. And I'm really pleased with it. And I'm glad people are taking it up. And hopefully, when it's just only now the first bit is reaching readers. Hopefully, when they get into it, they'll enjoy the story and the little bits and pieces that go with it. So, yeah, that was kind of much of my summer. So that was the sort of the main project, and of course, that'll now take a year to roll out, which will feel very
Yeah.
unusual for me because I'm usually someone that'll write something, push it through sort of editing stages, and try and get it out straight away. So this is going to be obviously quite a long journey. Um, and then, sort of strangely, because I would normally have perhaps an autumn release, that wasn't happening because of Ghost in the Post. But then, about 3 weeks ago, an idea popped into my head that I couldn't shake off for a Halloween type story,
Okay.
which then meant I had a very very tight deadline to get something done. So that's going to be coming out in about 10 days, 10, 12 days. I think I've slated it for the 16th. And it's just a novella, but it's to do with Halloween. So it was one of those I either had to do it now or shelve it for a year and
Yeah.
and and,
Yeah. Of
and wait till
course. Yeah.
next October. Um, so that's the next thing that will come out. Probably just ebook only, that one, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but then the other thing that I've started, but is kind of a slow burn at the minute, but will get done. So probably for a spring 2026 release. And that's the sequel to No One Is Leaving. So the first time I've ever really done a sort of a horror sequel. And particularly there'll be like 2.5 year gap between the first book and this
Mhm.
one, or maybe even a 3 year gap by the time it comes out. So it'll be interesting to see how that's received, whether it's something people like, or whether they've forgotten all about the other book and they're not that interested in a follow up. But that's certainly my next kind of novel length project, and that I'll be putting a sort of a lot of time into. So yeah, keeping busy. Couple of short stories I've written that might find a home, but not nowhere as yet. So yeah, we just keep going.
No, fair enough. You sound more busy than me, mate, to be fair. Right in front. But no, the Ghost in the Post thing sounds really good. And I know that a lot of the guys on my Patreon chat have been talking about it. And it's good as well that some of them mentioned that you also do different like variations on the pricing. So if the US to cut down on cost, you do like several months or something like that. Or
Yeah,
I may have got that wrong.
that was the tricky thing in that when I was putting it together, and then you kind of look at how much it cost to post things out, and you think, well, that's actually the biggest expense.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so I had to try and make it as affordable as possible. Now I understand, obviously, there are other products like this, not just in the horror genre, but in all sorts of genres. But I guess if they're American companies, they can do it more sort of efficiently than myself. So I just tried to cut the cost as much as I could. So giving people the option of rather than just receiving it every 2 weeks, which is like the general option, you can get it sort of 2 weeks worth in one batch, and then sort of have the discipline to spread it out yourself if you want, and that then kind of like
Yeah.
the postage cost. So just stuff like that, really. Just try and give some options, and 'cause ultimately, I want it to get out there and see what people think.
Yeah.
And I don't want to exclude American readers, so it was just about how I could do it. Much more tricky in that sort of physical form. Obviously a book is one thing that you post out and it's done, but the fact that this is a constant over a 12-month period has its challenges with things like postage and how you piece it all together and make it a worthwhile experience for the reader.
Yeah, I get that. At the same time, though, it looks so far. I mean, I keep spotting posts, so it looks to be well received. And I suppose with that, it going on over a monthly period for the course of a year, hopefully it's going to keep getting that exposure as well,
Yeah,
which would be really nice. So yeah, yeah, I hope it goes really well. And you mentioned
cheers,
about you're
mate.
doing a sequel to another book, book one. Was that first book well received, or was that kind of like
Yeah,
one of
no
your
one,
earlier works?
no one is leaving, so that was probably 2023, something like that, or late 2022.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's gone down well. It's one of my sort of more popular ones, and it's the only one really that has kind of lent itself to a sequel. And a couple of readers have said, "Is there going to be a book two?" And I've kind of first of all went, "Don't think so." Didn't have that in mind. But then the more that I sort of thought about it, the more I thought there is definitely scope for it. It's there's an open-ended nature to it at the conclusion of book one. But I thought I could follow that path and make a very sort of convincing book two. So once that again sort of took seed and started to germinate, I thought, right, yeah, I've definitely got something here. So the challenge of being, and I guess actually, Matt, you'll know the challenge yourself in doing sort of Wretched is you've got to make sure that you do justice to the overall story. You at least equal the first book, if not surpass it.
yeah,
And what you definitely mustn't do is ruin the first book for readers by what you do with the second book. So I guess you
yeah,
probably had similar thoughts, did you, when you were putting that together with
yeah.
Wretched?
I did, but at the same time as well. I mean, when I started Wretched, it took me like 2 years to write, and that's purely because I'm slow. Not that I'm not committed to doing it. But I think my take on Wretched was because it was more of a time period set novel. I could kind of risk making it different because I wanted
Yeah,
to make it accurate for the timeline where it's sat. But yeah, that thought is constantly going in your mind in terms of, is it going to be as well received as the first? Is it going to be disliked? Because straight off the bat, if you're going to get really crap like feedback from it, it also kind of, in my mind, kind of taints the first book in a way because
yeah,
obviously it's joined and it kind of ends that story there as well. Um, I kind of, I can completely relate to what you're saying. I think the issue that I had was the Echoes of Home book did really well, and that was my debut.
Yeah.
And people always asked about a second, but then when I brought a second out, the sales came in, but I didn't necessarily get a lot of exposure and feedback from it.
Right.
Um, but then it's also I can't push it a lot because I can't get new readers from it without them reading the first, and I don't want to keep flogging that first book over and over again. I want to do something different. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of authors that are doing like a series, and they say that that's kind of the way to go.
Yeah, I
To,
mean,
to
in other genres, it's massive, isn't it? If you take like science
yeah,
fiction
yeah,
and fantasy, that's their bread and butter, isn't it? These almost never-ending story arcs
yeah,
that that create book after book after book.
yeah.
I
That's
don't know
it.
how well it lends itself to horror that, um, because I think there's only so much sort of horrifying things a cast of characters can
Yeah.
take.
I mean,
So
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't know about you, but I've not read a lot of kind of books or prequel books where I thought that's even better than the first.
mm,
Uh, there's not. I'd say there's not many that comes to mind. I can't even think of one off the bat now, to be honest. I think it does work for some people, but I mean, I mean, I know it's kind of it's young adult, but you've got people like John Ward in the US who does like his young adult stuff.
yeah,
And from what I gather, they do really well. I don't know. I think maybe you just need to find the audience for it. Whereas I kind of feel like with mine, I don't know about yourself, that I sell quite well on just standalone. Maybe
yeah.
that's the
I
way
mean,
forward for me. Anyway.
and I guess that'll be the tester next year when this second book comes out. You know, whether I think there'll be a core group of people that will want it because they like the first book.
Yeah.
But yeah, like yourself with Wretched, really, it's like does it go any further, and do I want to then work really hard at trying to sell No One Is Leaving again? So I think, I mean, like with a lot of these things, I think they get written, don't they, because you want to write them, and that's first and foremost. You write them because you want to write them.
Yeah.
If it finds readers, then great, and anything else beyond that, is a bonus.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly
Definitely. Definitely.
it's something new for me to think about the whole sort of sequel thing and all those little challenges that we've just spoke about.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you say as well in terms of you are kind of writing, I suppose write it for yourself at first. I mean, if you've got a story there and you know it's going to work and you think it's going to be good, then why the hell not? I mean,
Yeah,
I like you said, I finished Wretched and in my opinion that's the best book that I've written. Um but yeah, it doesn't necessarily guarantee sales at the end of the day, does it? But no, I wish you all the best with it. You'll have to I haven't read that one book one. So
no one is leaving.
you'll have to point that one out to me.
I will. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cheers.
Much appreciated. Events. I mean, you might be on a similar wavelength to me when it comes to UK events, to be perfectly honest. Have you just got Liverpool Indie Horror Chapter or
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
in indie horror chapter is it really? I don't know where to look for these things. I do see sort of friends of ours pop up at different places, and I think, how did they get on that? Where did they hear about this? And I
Yeah.
suppose I've got to get my ear to the ground a little bit more and look out for these things. Um, I mean, I suppose the tricky thing is as well, a lot of them are not necessarily book events, are they? They're kind of like craft fairs and things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
or multi-genre events. And you do wonder, how much exposure, how many sort of interactions you get, let alone sales. But I mean, obviously, Indie Horror Chapter has been fantastic, and there's not a great deal of that kind of thing around, which I suppose makes it fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah, as far
100%.
as events, that'll be my next one.
Yeah,
Unless I,
it's my next one. And like you, I've looked at a couple of like these other events that set outside of it. So I originally was looking at like some of the horror cons, but then I get the impression that, like you say, interaction is, it makes or breaks it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I went to a Comic-Con at Stoke. There was one in Stoke last week on the Saturday, and we usually go because like it's Stoke, so it won't cost you
Yeah.
very much, and it usually has like a couple of guests there, but it's mainly stalls. And I always said to Em originally before I started getting involved in like the horror community, I was like, that's probably a really good place for me to start. Um, and I went that first time. I didn't go again, but we went last week, and we walked around the stalls, and there was one author there.
Yeah.
Um, Sally, he was a kind of like a sci-fi slash thriller author. He'd only got two books out, but he was there in the middle of all the Comic-Con stalls, got his banners up,
Yeah.
his new banners, bless him. And while the missus was walking around, I just kind of stood by waiting because I'd kind of got to a point where I had enough. I was just watching his table, and I was just like, No one. No
Yeah.
one went to him at all. I felt that bad that I went up to him and I was just like, "How's it going?" And I didn't say that right because I thought that's the last thing an author probably wants when,
Yeah.
they're having a shit day and they're trying to sell books, somebody else coming up to them just to say they're an author. So I picked up one of his hardbacks. I looked on Amazon, he's got no reviews or anything, but I said to Emma, I said, I just feel so bad for him. I was like, go on, I'll have one, I'll give it a go. And he was started
Mm.
getting out his paperback. I said, no, go on, I'll have an hardback. Didn't have a price on the table. It was like 25 quid. I was like, fuck.
Oh, that was brave of
But
you.
yeah, but I've not read it yet. I'm currently reading Stephen King's The Institute. That's quite good. So I said I'll give it a go after, and I said I'll leave him a review. So we'll see how
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, but you're right. There isn't a lot out there. They did that Black Country one, and that
Yeah.
I
But
think
it's
that
fallen through, hasn't it?
tailed off. Yeah, well, I didn't know it was going ahead this year, to be perfectly honest, at
Well, there
all.
was
I
supposed to
haven't
be
seen
one.
anything for it.
Well, there was supposed to be one this month. Way back, I think that was organised, earlier on in the year, and then I didn't sign up for it this time round, but it was Chris Jones that told me
Hmm.
at Western actually. He said that it had fallen through and it wasn't happening. Um, but a shame again because could they that was quite good the one of those that we did.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember funny enough, I was talking to. It was when we were at Weston, and I was talking to Lee and RJ
yeah,
Daly about it, and I said I don't know why. I said I always kind of I link indie horror chapter with the very first Black Country because that was kind of the first one where we all kind of got together and went out
yeah,
at night for a drink. So I always put that two and two together, and I always say to Lee like that was great that first night because there was just like a group of close-knit people who got on really well, and now it's just turned into something obviously a lot bigger than what that small group was back then. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, I remember that as well because I remember that was the first time I'd met Trish as well, and I didn't realize, I thought she was, just another reader, but I mean, Trish is
Yeah.
anything but just another reader, isn't she?
Yeah, yeah, she
She's a
works her
force of
socks off.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah, she does work her socks off.
So
But
yeah, that was a real sort of kickstart for me because it was the first time I'd met other people like yourself. Um, First time I saw what it could be and connecting to readers. I don't know about you, but I'm still bowled over with the fact that people like to read my books, and just having people tell me that to my face
yeah,
was mind blowing, and it still is.
yeah,
So yeah, so you're right. That sort of does stick in my mind as well as almost like being the genesis of where we've kind of gone in the last couple of years, really,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
as a collective.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. What about, and I've got to ask this, and this isn't a question that was asked, but considering that 90% of my Patreon guys are from the US. Would you ever consider doing anything over there in terms of attending?
Yeah, yeah, possibly. With the last one. It was one that when the kind of like the invites went out for books and brews, people for authors to show interest. I was kind of umming and ahhing about it, and it's obviously horrendously expensive for us to get over there. So I was
Yeah.
trying to work it all out. But I think when it for that one, what it boiled down to was I just had a case of imposter syndrome and said, no, there's no point putting my name in. I'm not there yet. I'm not that sort of name in the indie horror community yet. So I kind of talked myself out of it. Um, so yeah, perhaps in the future. But you'll know more than anyone really. It's about that careful management of I guess funds, treating it not necessarily as a con, but think right, we've got to make this a holiday or something. We've got to
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
got to it's got to serve a lot of purposes to make the sort of the cost worthwhile, really. I don't think I'd get away with my missus won't let me get away with just jumping on a plane, doing that, and jumping back, and having spent a load of money in the
Yeah.
meantime. So yeah, it's something I'd love to do. I would absolutely love to do it. Um, but it would need sort of very sort of careful sort of planning and management from my point of view, to try and make it feel like that I could justify it really in that situation where still very much a fledgling writer in this sort of genre, and you know my exposure is what it is. Um, we don't do this to make a lot of money, do we? But the cost of that, I would have to, justify coming up with it, because I know
Yeah.
I wouldn't be making it back, um,
Oh,
in
no,
book sales.
no,
So
definitely not. I mean, look, when I did Books and Brews, not like it was last year,
yeah,
I went kind of thinking, I don't know how this is going to go. I took 60 books with me, and I thought I had this vision in my head of I've got no idea how I'm going to bring these back home if I don't sell them. I don't know what the event's going to be like on the day, and it completely blew my mind, to be honest, because to kind of finish end of day and sold out like an hour
wow,
prior, it was just, yeah, it was kind of unbelievable. But the place is that packed and people are that willing to talk to you.
yeah,
I always talk about, whenever I talk to Lee about this, whenever we compare like US to the UK, when you're getting readers come to you who don't know you, it kind of feels like they're trying to say, okay, convince me to buy your book. Tell me what. Whereas in the US, it's very much just walk up to your table, buy it. Um,
right,
yeah, and like you say about justifying as well, whether or not it works for you, but I've always justified it as, okay, I'm going to go over there and do an event. I'm taking the missus with me. How can I justify going all that way, purely for a book event? We turn it into a little holiday every time. So we do
yeah,
the event and then we'll go to the city and spend like 3 days there. And
yeah. I
that's
think
what I'm
that's how I
doing
think that's how I'd
in
have to do it, really. Yeah,
best way. At least you kind of feel like you're getting your money's worth, I suppose, because the plane travel is that expensive as
yeah,
well. I think for me and Emma, it's like um, Chicago was like 3K
yeah.
just for the plane ride, and Philadelphia in this January coming. That's I think that was like 2,800 something like that. But
It's
like you
crazy.
say, you don't make anything from it in a set. You get your money from your books, but because you're technically on holiday over there, whatever money you make cash in hand, you end up spending anyway,
Yeah,
on drinks and food and stuff like that. But no, I think yeah, if you were to consider it, I think it would be good. And I think because obviously you're kind of not new over there, but because people read your work, but the fact that people don't get the opportunity to meet you in person, I think you'd probably do really well.
Yeah, it'd be
But
lovely. It'd
yeah,
be lovely. But we'll see. We'll put it on the list.
there you go. Okay, up next, I got recommendations, if you'd be so kind.
Okay.
So, um, so I'm going to reel some off to you, and if you can just give me an answer and why, if possible. So, a recent book that you've read that you would recommend that isn't horror, and when I say recently, I don't mean it has to be like within, you know, the past couple of months or recent to you.
Um, yeah, tricky that because I mean, I don't know about yourself, Matt, but because I've sort of thrown myself into this community, I've got so many books
Horror.
from yeah, horror books from colleagues and friends. That tends to be my reading diet. So let's have a think. I'm trying to think how far back I can go to pick
Is
something up
is
that's not.
is okay then? Is there a particular book that isn't horror? What doesn't have to be recent? Maybe something that you read like teenage years or something
Yeah.
like that that isn't horror that sticks out
Well,
that you would recommend?
yeah, my favorite writer that's not horror. Um, I've not read any of his for a while, but for a time I was all over it. Was John Irving.
Okay.
So I do love John Irving books. So as a starting point for anyone who wanted to read John Irving, I'd say The World According to Garp. They made a film in the 80s with Robin Williams in the lead for that, which is a good film. But the book's superb, and I love his writing style. I mean, the books are huge, but
Yeah.
you get lost in them, and you don't feel like it's a slog. You just feel like you're
Yeah.
being invited into his brain, and you just learning about all these people that occupy it. Because they are very much character driven, with some quirky narrative thrown in. But yeah, mainly it's about the characters. So for a long time, I was a big John Irving fan. It's been a while since I've picked one up, and I guess the other one, actually just thinking about it, non-horror, but again, it's been a long time because he doesn't write them, and that's George R. R. Martin and the Game of Thrones books. So
Okay.
I read all of those
Yeah. Bloody
when
hell.
kind of when that first TV series came out, and
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the next one.
Then if it
Or,
ever comes out.
or for him to die. It's one or the two, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, I love those, and you can be daunted by a huge book, but then you just get drawn into it and sort of lose yourself in it. It's similar to when I first read Stephen King's The Stand. I thought,
Yeah.
crikey, look at this mammoth tome, but you just get so invested in the people
You do.
that,
Yeah.
that it's not just it doesn't feel like you're having to read a book to get to the end and say I've read it. You're actually sort of enjoying
Hmm.
the journey of being with those characters. So um yeah, all of
Yeah.
those things I've just mentioned fall into that category. John Irving, George R. R. Martin, and then a book like The Stand. It's kind of
Yeah.
losing yourself in that world.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also kind of feel like you're getting your money's worth as well. But yeah, I read The Stand as a teen. I've read I've not read all the game. I read the first one. I can't remember. Is the first one called A Game of Thrones or is
Yeah,
it called
yeah,
yeah. I read the first one and that was purely because I was watching the series and then it kind
yeah,
of got to the point where it was like I don't know if I can read all of the. I don't mind some fantasy, to be perfectly honest. That's probably my second favorite genre. Um, but yeah, it was one of those. I was kind of binge watching the Game of Thrones
yeah.
series, and then I just thought, you know what, first book will probably do. But no, yeah, cheers for recommending those. I always like asking that because we talk about horror so much, and the odds are that everybody's kind of got like different genres that they really enjoy, or even stuff like movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be, ghosts and ghouls. Okay, same question, but for horror, but recent, if you can recommend something that you've read recently.
Um, well, as far as physical book, the last physical book I read was Chris Jones's Do Not Unlock.
I
I
read
thought
that.
that was excellent. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. It takes a while to sort of get going in the first sort of 60, 70 pages, but again, it's that kind of a book where you think, if I commit to this and don't feel like I've just got to rush through it, but find myself in there, then I'm sure it's going to pay off because I know that Chris is a good writer. And then it absolutely did pay off. You kind of get to know the characters in those first 60, 70 pages. And then, things start to go awry, all hell breaks loose. And then you're really sort of rooting for them in this sort of prison setting where you've got the prisoners and the staff having to kind of work together. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then I kind of do audiobooks as well from time to time. And the last one I did of those was the September House. I thought that was okay. It kind of it felt like it was going to be pretty standard haunted house, unreliable narrator kind of story, and it was to a certain extent. But there were a couple of twists in there and a couple of moments that I really enjoyed. So overall, it was a kind of an
Who
audiobook experience that was good.
who was September House? I've got Christina Henry in mind. I don't think it was a who did it.
No, oh God, now you're asking. Does
I'll
begin with a
look for it
T.
later.
Yeah,
But I've seen.
um,
I remember the cover.
yeah, it's
Um,
like a deep red cover.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I read Chris's Do Not Unlock. I thought it was very good. And like you say, it takes takes a little while for it to get going. But that's like Chris in general. To be fair, expect
he
no
is very
different.
chilled. He is very chilled.
No, that's cool. Very kind of similar recommendation, mate, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to go off books and onto movies. So, um, what about a recent movie, non-horror, or one that's obviously pastime favorite that you would recommend?
Um, non-horror.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think what I've seen recently.
there's not a lot of
No,
good stuff out recently, to be
yeah, well,
fair.
but there is. But again, I find myself kind of slipping into the horror just to sort of keep everything
Yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah,
of almost
yeah.
stimulated, to be honest. And I watch a lot of terrible horror. There's so much crap in horror
Yeah,
films because
there
I guess
is.
they're easy to make, aren't they? All you need is just have
Yeah,
someone chasing someone with a knife and just
yeah.
film that for 80 minutes. Um, so I'm trying to think of recent none. I'm trying to think of where I've been to the cinema. Um, quite liked the one of the latest Marvel ones that I think is going to perhaps reboot the whole thing because they've been dying on their ass recently. Thunderbolts, I quite enjoyed that. Thought
I've
that
not
was
seen it yet.
yeah, I thought that was a good movie. Getting back to the kind of characters and the humor and the sort of storytelling that they were better at 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so I enjoyed that. As far as all time favorite movies, um, I think my all-time favorite movie is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, with
Oh,
Jack
it's a
Nicholson.
great film.
Yeah,
Uh,
um, it was one of those that I watched at I guess at an impressionable age when I was at sort of a teenager and when I was at school. Jack Nicholson was my favorite actor. I guess I saw The Shining,
mhm.
um, and saw Cuckoo's Nest and a few other films, and I got kind of obsessed with Jack Nicholson. Um, but yeah, I remember being probably 15 years old and going into a video shop because they existed back then, and really putting pressure on the guy to sell me his copy, his certificate 18 copy of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because there was nowhere else I felt I could get it. And I pushed him and pushed him and pushed him, and in the end, he gave it me for a fiver. And so that was like a really like treasured possession, this VHS copy of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I just kind of like watched it tons, and even now, if I watch it, I just love every beat of it. I think it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
And the book as well, Ken Kesey's book, it's bonkers in lots of ways and different to the movie. But again, a really interesting read. So if people like the movie, it's a good. It kind of it's not exactly the same, but it sort of they
Mhm.
complement each other in different ways. So
Yeah.
that's a good book and movie combo.
Yeah. Ah, fair enough. Thank you very much. And I'll take a look at the Marvels one because I really enjoyed the Marvels films, but then I
Mm,
kind of felt after I think it was Infinity War they were just kind of they were trying to bring characters in which weren't popular to try and you know
yeah.
try and keep them relevant. And I've tried some of them and it completely fell off for me. So if you recommend that one, I'll give that one a go.
Yeah,
I'll
I
pick
think
it up.
it's got the same. You know, you think about the Avengers movies where you've got those that kind of the little like the buddy banter between them and the humor and the little relationships. It's got all that again, which I think is where the those sort of big Avengers movies work best. Like I say, the only problem was they used all the kind of A-list superhero characters in those movies, and now they're having to
Yeah,
scrap around and see what's left.
that's
But
it.
yeah, it's worth it. It's good fun anyway.
Yeah, yeah, no, right. And what you're saying about like your video store trying to get a copy as well, it's just kind of giving me a little bit of a flashback. So when I was like probably like really early teens, like 13. I was quite big on for a start I collected VHSs
Yeah,
at the time, but it was mainly action. I wasn't into horror or anything back then. So it was all these stuff like Stallone and Schwarzenegger, Jackie Chan, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah,
the list goes on. And I remember because I collect them all by kind of like by actor if they were films that I liked. I remember renting from the video shop, and you may remember it, you may not, but it was a Stallone film called Assassins, and it had
Oh, with Sharon
Antonio
Stone.
with Sharon Stone and oh, was it
Yeah.
Sharon Stone? No, it was Julia Moore and Antonio Banderas was in it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Assassins,
No, Sharon
and
Stone was in a different one.
yeah, and I rented it from the video shop. And one thing that I did is if I liked it, I would go to whatever video store we had. I think like kind of mid 90s was like HMV was the closest that we
Yeah,
had in Stoke. And I remember going in there and asking them for it, and they were just like, no, we don't we don't do it. And I remember thinking, well, where am I meant to get it from? And the only
yeah,
solution that I had was I'm going to go into the video store and plead for a copy. And
yeah.
like you, I managed to get it. I think I paid a bit more than a fiver though. And looking back now, I'm thinking, why? Obviously, I don't have any of my VHSs anymore. I don't know really anybody that does. But yeah, it just gave me a little bit of a flashback that did, Stephen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about
Uh,
you. I couldn't believe the balls of myself that I'd actually do that with it, you know, as a 15-year-old and putting pressure on this adult.
yeah,
Sell me now. Sell me that.
yeah.
I wouldn't do it now.
No, I remember asking the guy, and he was like, "I'm going to have to talk to my manager," and he went in the back on his phone, all because I wanted Assassins with Sylvester Stallone. Um,
Funny. Of
okay, mate, I've got questions up next. Now, these are questions from the Patreon members. Some
course. Sure.
are you don't have to go in depth on any of them. Some are relatively quick, so we can kind of speed through them, really. So, if you're ready, favorite writing snack or drink?
Writing snack or drink.
Hmm.
Um, it would just be coffee, I guess. When I'm writing, you know, I'm in a zone, so I don't eat when I'm writing. So it'd just be yeah, lots of coffee, keep it coming.
Fair play. This might coincide with the recommendations but favorite boot read so far this year.
Um, so I'd put Chris's up there. I also really enjoyed. I read right at the beginning of the year Peter Caffrey's Crust Investigates, which is hilarious. Kind of, it's about a sort of a Sherlock Holmes knockoff. Really, he lives above Sherlock Holmes. He's an obnoxious, you know, awful character, but lovable in every sense. rude, just yeah, just a terrible guy. But you can't help reading more of him. And that's I'm not talking about Peter. I'm talking about his character. But yeah, Crust investigates for like comedy, mystery story with a bit of horror thrown in. But yeah,
Oh,
that was
okay.
really good.
Yeah, that does actually sound quite funny. I've not read anything of Peter's yet, actually. I've always been under
Oh,
the impression that it's kind of like extreme stuff, and I don't read that. Nothing against
yeah,
it.
but I think he's a
Um,
bit bizarro, isn't he, Peter? I think some of yeah, bizarro and extreme, and a little bit like anything goes. And I wanted to read him, but I wanted something that felt rooted in something I understood. And like the Sherlock Holmes stories, and like a bit of a parody or like a spin off of that, with Peter's humour in there, and maybe the odd gross detail. I thought, yeah, that sounds right up my street. And yeah, and it delivered. It's really good. It's basically it's comprised of like five novelettes, so it's like five separate stories with the overarching thread of following the two main
got you.
people, which is Crust and his sidekick. So you kind of they're developing it through each of the five stories, but you do get five distinct stories, five distinct cases, if you like, thinking of like Sherlock Holmes kind of approach. And that comprises of the full book. But yeah, so that's really good as a bit of a different read.
Okay, cool. I wonder where he came up with the name Crust.
Well, you don't want to ask really with Peter, do you?
True. Speaking of crust, right, this question is got to be a US question because it gets mentioned quite a lot on like social media. Um, Beans or toast, you can only pick one. I don't I don't get what this thing is with beans on toast. I never had it at all really grow it. Not as like a meal
Yeah.
anyway, but it's kind of like shouted about quite a lot when it comes to like poking fun at the Brits.
Oh, I
I don't
see.
know if people do it anymore, but
No,
you certainly heard around.
I'm partial to beans on toast. I always have been. If I had to pick beans or toast, oh crikey, I think I'd go beans. I'd stick with my beans.
Just beans out of a tin.
Well, I'd have them with other things like pie and chips. You know, but I can't have the slice of toast with pie and chips, so I'll stick with
Fair
my
enough.
beans.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, okay. What is your favorite part about Ghost in the Post without spoilers, obviously? Um,
Um,
I can't
yeah,
elaborate anymore on that because obviously I've not. So I'll leave that one with you.
yeah, okay. Favorite part. It was the challenge of it really was the favorite part because I was conscious that I've got to sow the seeds of a story, and obviously you can't have too much happening too soon because the story will burn out too quickly. So that it was the challenge of drip feeding things in, but still hopefully hooking readers in and making them want to carry on.
Hmm.
More than in a novel. I think in a novel, you've got that grace of, like they're talking back about Chris's, 60, 70 pages.
Yeah.
You can play around with things there. But I know I had to hook people in, but also not give too much away. So I enjoyed the challenge of doing that, of doing something different. And then the other side of it, which taps into my other sort of creative outlet really is putting together little extra little bits that go with it. So either little bits of artwork or designing little things on the computer that go with it. So that's been really fun as well and enjoyable and finding ways of making them complement the story. So the story works completely on its own if you want it to, but it's richer, I'm hoping, for some of the extra little bits that I'm
Those
putting in.
bits.
And if readers kind of look at the visuals and some of them have writing on as well as the main story, I think it'll make it all come to life, hopefully. So yeah, putting all the creative stuff together, all the visuals and the extra little bits was really good fun.
Yeah, I can see that because it's kind of bringing it to life a little bit more as well, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I've seen some of the bits, so you've got like photos and stuff in there, haven't you? So Yeah, I can completely understand that.
Yeah, and like little maps and things like that. And one of the characters, she likes to paint, so it means I can paint or do
You've
little
got
pictures.
It's
And
just an excuse for you to paint, isn't it,
yeah,
really?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've just entertained myself with it really. So if no one buys it, I suppose it doesn't matter too much.
No, it's good. I'm hoping I didn't really ask before. Is it going well? I said I hoped
Slow,
it went well.
yeah, slow and steady, and I think it will be like you were saying. It could pick up pace as it goes along, really, and I think that's what it will be. I'm hoping it'll be a
Yeah.
case of a handful of people get it initially, talk about it, and say this is really good. Why don't you sign up? And I hope it's just going to snowball a little bit. I was under no illusions thinking, I would wake up on 1st of October and have 1,000,
Yeah.
subscribers.
But but
Um,
but that's the same as even like a book, isn't it? You can bring a book out and think, oh, I hope but then on day one, you're not going to be a millionaire overnight kind of thing. You're not going to sell
yeah,
like, but like you say, it's going to have that exposure impact. You've got the people that are just receiving them, the people that are going to be reading them and they want to review them in some kind of way. But I know that like Alicia on my Patreon, Steph and Jen, that I've seen
yeah,
them, they've been posting about it.
yeah. They've subscribed. I'm very very grateful to those guys for that. So thank you very
Yeah.
much.
And I won't lie, mate, I never even, until we met at Western. Because I've kind of drifted off social media quite a bit lately. I kind of go on, I give my set self times now when it comes to like Facebook and stuff, because you
Right.
can lose so much time,
Yeah.
really, just literally scrolling feeds and comments. But when you told me about it, Western, I was just like, that is an awesome idea, really. Um,
It
so
is.
yeah, going back on what I said before, I hope it does do really well. Um, Okay, I'm going to skip that one because we kind of did it with recommendations. So, what is your favorite story that you've written?
Oh
If
God.
you've got one, can you pick one of your babies?
It's hard, isn't it, when it's like that?
Hmm.
And then, because I do short stories as well, and I've put out collections. There's stories I've written that I've forgotten I've written. When I look back at some of those, and think,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was that one about? But ooh, it's always the case that perhaps the most recent one you enjoy because you feel that you did a good job on it. So Ring Rock, I really enjoy still. That was out this year. I thought Grievous Wood. I was really satisfied with that when that all came together. It all fell into place the way I wanted it to. But I suppose one of the ones that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I really have a soft spot for is 21 Days because it was a very different kind of book, not purely horror, more sort of psychological, and from the perspective of four different narrators. So it was interesting to write it, and then again really happy with the outcome. And when if you sort of look on my Goodreads or whatever, it looks like it's my most popular book because it's got more ratings and so on.
Hmm.
That was purely came out of having it in last year's Terrify Your Tablet, which I think it kicks off tomorrow, doesn't it? Where you can like download books for free,
Yeah.
and it was in that, and it got loads and loads of free downloads. So it meant that it got ratings and reviews, um, or some reviews, but it's not a book of mine that does get talked about a lot on social media. That the reviews came in or the ratings came in, and I think from a lot of them from some people that were not necessarily horror but had just picked it up.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's had I guess a mixed kind of feedback in places, but for me it was like a real a joy to write because it was different. And then the end product, I thought, oh, I'm really pleased with that. That's worked really well. So if anyone's not picked up 21 Days and wants to give that a spin, I'd be delighted to hear what they think of it.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, it's kind of going off books now. So, what are you most afraid of?
Oh gosh.
Going darker.
Yeah.
And and I've noticed here they do get a little bit darker here. So you go on.
I'm not one of these kind of like, the heights or spiders or anything like that. But
Hmm.
it is purely, I guess it's that thing as a parent and as a husband. It's it's that fear of terrible things happening to your loved ones, really.
Okay.
And less about me, but about them. I've got two sons who are now both in their 20s, and they're both adults, but I still fear for them. And want kind of to know how they're getting on and all those kind of things all the time.
Yeah.
And the idea of disaster striking either of those two, or my wife Sophie, that's the greatest fear, I think. Which is why I think a lot of my fiction is either based around a family unit or a couple, because it's always one of the characters fearing for someone they love. I think is always in there somewhere, or
Hmm.
even if even if it's a best mate, it's fearing for your best mate. So I think it's that, and I think that's where a lot of my stories come from.
Fair enough. So no personal phobias, I guess.
No, nothing like
No.
that. No, I'm not a fan of mold. There we go.
Oh.
You know, when like you find something that's been left and it's got those green spots on it. Yeah, I just does something a bit strange to me that I'm not a fan. So if that's a
Oh
fear, I don't know.
no, it made me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I shouldn't be laughing more. Yeah, it did. Yeah, that has made me chuckle.
Yeah, that
Um,
could be my trigger. That Matt, you're laughing at
yeah,
it. I could be scared.
there you go. But
What's the
I
biggest?
think I think with me, it's gone a little bit strange because as a teen or a kid, I never had any kind of phobias or anything. I wasn't scared of the spiders or anything like
Mm,
that now. But over like the past like probably 10 years or stuff, I've gone really kind of I suppose off about like small spaces, like
right.
even like ju just like on Facebook and stuff. You can just like skip through videos and stuff like that, and then one will come up about somebody getting stuck in a cave, and that really, yeah, I don't like it at all. But um, I've like Ben Young's book that he did,
Mm,
Stuck. That was for me because of the claustrophobic thing. Usually when it comes to like, like triggers or anything like that, I've always kind of just dismissed it. Whereas because I've kind of got, I wouldn't say necessarily a fear, but it makes me feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
I found that book like really good. Um,
yeah.
so
It's a
yeah,
great read, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the thing
bit
about
of,
just to go on a bit of a tangent. That's the thing about trigger warnings, isn't it? Because you don't know what people's triggers are. So
yeah,
I've never really listed trigger warnings in any of my books,
I haven't, mate.
and I keep thinking, should I? But it's like, well, how can I? You come into a horror novel, so you're
Yeah,
expecting something. But how do I
yeah.
know exactly all the triggers? Like I said, jokingly, I said, mold might be my trigger, but no one's going to write in a book. There are incidents of mold in this. There are things. There is a layer of scum floating on a cup of tea. You know, it's
Yeah,
so you don't know, do you? So that's what I've never
yeah.
really done. And
I,
yeah,
I think if there is any kind of books that feature mold, Stephen, you might be a bit screwed, mate. I think you might just have to
yeah,
put up with it. But there you go. Anyway, going on, yeah, carrying on with the darker questions. I should really, you know what I never do when I get these questions, I always kind of copy and paste them onto Word and print them off. I never put who they're from. I should really start doing that. I think this might be Sarah, so I apologize to Sarah if I've got it wrong. But she's asked, if you knew you were dying tomorrow,
sugar.
what would your final meal be?
Um, it wouldn't be anything like clever or adventurous to
Beans on
try and
toast.
yeah, there we go. No, just the beans. You've taken the toast from me. Um, my favorite food's Indian, so it would just be some sort of like Indian banquet, and I'd just sort of wallow in it for as long as I could,
Yeah.
and hopefully, I don't know if I was being killed that the stench would put people off the day after, or if it was an illness, somehow the ingredients inside the madras fought off the infection. I don't know, but yeah, definitely an Indian for me, I think.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Next one. Yeah, I'm sorry, mate. It's very much on the same topic, but if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. They put this one as heavy, so skip it if you want. If if you knew you were dying tomorrow again,
It's
what
something that
what
you need
would
to tell me, Matt, about tomorrow.
I
What
I know I
fourth
know
fourth of
I know
October? Is this a?
I was thinking that you don't have any mold in your house, do you?
I'm gonna have to check now when I get off this call.
What would your biggest regret be?
Ooh, okay. I suppose that's a little bit
It's a personal
meatier.
question, but I suppose if somebody was to ask me that, mine would probably be like I work a lot away from home, so it would probably be like
Mm,
spending time with kids and stuff like that, and
yeah.
being available and prioritizing work and stuff like that. So I suppose it's how you want to take it. You're more than happy if you want to skip it.
No, it's fine. And I think it similar sort of lines really, but about being with regards to work, about being braver about work and when I being certainly as a younger person taking more risks. I sort of went to university and kind of fell into teaching because it was safe, and so
Yeah,
that then became my career. So looking back now, I think the whole what if I'd tried something else? I've always loved writing. I was writing as a teen and writing into my twenties, but never felt I could do something with it. So you kind of go, I suppose if you could change things, maybe think, you know what, I can take a year out and just do something different and just see if something
yeah, of
takes off.
course.
And both my lads, they've kind of gone down the sort of the arts route, and are in that position where it's like you've got to get a job, or my last lad starting his last year at uni.
Yeah,
But we've said to them both, said, look, try and find something you're passionate about first. Don't think you've got to fall straight into a job, just because me and your mum did, because we thought that's what you had to do as soon as you
yeah,
left. So I guess sort of vicariously through them, I'm trying to get them to, you know, get the thing that they're passionate about and follow that. So yeah, I guess that'd be my regret. Not that I begrudge my teaching career at all. I've had a great time at it, um, but just didn't do anything else other than recently this whole writing gig. I mean, I suppose that's another thing as well. I wish I'd done this 20 years earlier, but I suppose we didn't have the opportunity with regards to self-publishing 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, I hear that. Funny enough, and when I was a teen, I always loved the idea of writing. Big classical reader, um, but it was always one of those. You're kind of a little bit ignorant when you're a teenager as well. You don't even know how you get into it or anything like
yeah,
that. And I remember it was my English teacher. Oh, it was like a substitute English teacher actually. He um he was looking after us for like a couple of weeks while our other one was God knows elsewhere. Uh, and he had self-published a book. The guy was in like his late 60s, and he self-published a book in the early 80s, and it was ghost stories. So he went round from like place to place. He actually went out and did research. He stayed at some of the buildings and
wow.
stuff. And
We could Google it now.
yeah, well, this is the thing. He
Yeah,
was a lot of it was kind of like folklore stories, kind of stories passed on to that area. And what he'd do at the end of every English lesson is he'd put aside 10 minutes and read one of his short stories. And
right.
I remember people asking him questions, and they were like, "Well, it's like it would have been like 20 years plus old by then." And people asking him how many copies that he sold of it. and bearing in mind, we thought this is an author that is teaching us and he's reading the
Yeah, yeah,
stories. And he was like, I've sold a grand total of like 50 copies. And I was just like, how much harder it must have been back then to try and get
yeah.
the word out with no social media whatsoever. But I've long since tried to find that book, and I've searched for probably over the past like not continuously, but probably over the past like six odd years. I remember what the
Wow.
cover looks like. I can't remember his name, and I can't remember the title of the book.
Okay. Two bits of information there that you probably
Yeah,
needed.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So literally, whenever the idea hits me, I'll jump on eBay and I'll look for like ghost stories of published in like 1980 to 1985 or something like that. I've never found anything. The odds are I
just
never
in
will,
case.
but yeah, that's it. Um, okay, what have we got next? Uh, okay, odd considering I was just talking about that. Do you have a memorable teacher growing up or a favorite school memory?
Um, yeah, I guess similar to yourself in that one of my biggest inspirations when I was young was my English teacher, a lady called Mrs. Brigg. And again, it was just that she was passionate about what she did. I don't think she wrote herself, although she did it. She has done in later life. She's self-published books now. She lives in Australia. Um, but I didn't know her as that at the time. I just knew her as an exciting English teacher who
Yeah,
passionate about what she did and was really interested in me, and and my friends and in what we were doing, with regards to what we were writing or what our opinions were of the books we were reading. So I remember reading with her. We did Lord of the Flies, and Brighton Rock, and they were like two brilliant reading experiences. And the fact that we could just like discuss those books with her, was just amazing, really. Because it felt quite grown up being able to do that.
yeah.
While there'd be other people in the class falling asleep and picking their nose, there were a handful of us that were really into it. So it wouldn't have been like one particular experience, but just having that touchstone of an exceptional English teacher, who was genuinely interested in what you thought about stuff, was really meaningful for me, and I've never forgotten it.
Yeah, and if I mean it's not a question that's on here, but I'm going to kind of flip that round. You teach, right?
Yeah.
So is it kind of, forgive me, I've never really asked in conversation when I've been with you in person, but what kind of grade level do you teach?
Yeah, secondary, so 11 to
So
16.
okay, so is have you expressed about your writing to students, or is that kind of very much hush
I,
hush?
I, yeah, I've always kept it separate, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mainly because I suppose what we write is for a more adult audience. If I was
Hmm.
writing young adult, then I would have jumped all over it and tried to do all my promotion at work. Um, so I always I tried to keep it separate and not really talk about it, which I could have made it easier by having a pseudonym, but never mind. That's gone now. Um,
Mm.
I had one incident last year, actually. Not an incident, that makes it sound dramatic. It wasn't, but I had a student who had picked up one of my books. She'd worked it out. She'd kind of done a little snooping, and she'd worked out it was me, and she bought it. And she brought it in and asked me if I would sign it. And I had to say no, because I said, it's not something I'm pushing with student body. It's not meant for, you're 13, 14. It's not really meant for you. I can't, say to you, you shouldn't have bought it. That's up to you. I think a mum had bought it off Amazon, so a mum knew about it. But if I sign it, I'm kind of vindicating it. So I said, it's up to you whether you read it, but I'm not going to put my name to it in that sense. And I felt really bad about it, but I sort of had to kind of cover my own back in that sense. It's a very
Yeah.
sort of it's a tricky balance to, teaching and kids and all that kind of thing, and your professional distance, but also the human side of you, and the fact that the kids love the fact that you've got a life, and
Mhm.
that you do other things. They they want to see you as people, not not just as these kind of dusty ogres that tip out of the cupboard at 9 o'clock in the morning. Um, so yeah, that was a strange one. And luckily, I mean, we got on really well. Our sort of connection in the classroom, so she was okay with it. Um, but yeah, I've always tried to sort of keep that separate, really.
Yeah. No,
But
that's
but but,
it's a
but
good
what I would
answer.
say is, I would still, I would always write things for lessons. So there'd be bits of fiction that I would write to demonstrate, good and bad practice, because obviously a lot
Hmm.
of what they would have to do at GCSE would be to write their own story. Um, so I would kind of use, my own stuff for that, but not the stuff I write normally, but I would write things specific for the lessons. And I think that that went down well because the kids appreciated the fact that effort was put in, and I wasn't just saying turn to page 98 in the textbook.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. No, it's a good answer to be fair. And I get it. It's got to be quite difficult, I suppose, from like a teacher student point of view. So yeah, I get where you're coming from with that. I mean, with my workplace, pretty much everybody knows that I
Yeah,
write. But when people ask me about it, I'm very reserved in the workplace. I do not like talking about. I think maybe because it's kind of like I don't want it to come across as conflict of interest most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think from a teacher point of view, like I was talking to you about what one of mine when I was in high school. Um, I thought it was really cool at the time because it was kind of like the first teacher that kind of appeared that they had like a life and
yeah,
hobbies outside of the school grounds. Because let's face it, to a lot of teenagers, I don't know how high school has changed over the years, but to a lot of teenagers, they look at kind of teachers and just kind of they just see the front of them. They don't
yeah,
obviously, there's no personality really involved. I certainly didn't have many. But no, I should have guessed an art teacher, to be perfectly honest, because of the amount of painting that you do. And obviously, you do it for some of your covers as well.
yeah.
That's not separated, mind you. As long as you don't paint your covers in school grounds, I suppose that's all right.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
yeah, there you go. Two left, mate, and then I'll leave you alone for the evening. Um, where would you like to see indie horror chapter take place in the UK or Europe location? I doubt it will ever go to Europe locations outside the UK, but whatever, I'll ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be tricky. I suppose it'd be nice to get over to Ireland if we could, because we've got Irish writers, haven't we? So,
Yeah, that's true.
that would be nice. Um, I guess if we're doing the whole tour, then Scotland's another sort of area, isn't it? I know they do have sort of horror cons up there, don't they, in
Yeah,
Scotland?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, it's just nice. I think we spoke about it when we were interviewed before, weren't we? About it. It's nice to have different venues, different setups, different readers, and then a different roster of writers. Obviously, there's some of us that are like bad pennies always turning up, but at the same time, there's always new faces. So as long as I think that carries on, the spirit of it, then I don't mind where it goes. If I can get there, I will try to get there and enjoy it like everybody else.
You're pretty much on the same lines as me, to be perfectly honest there. I don't get me wrong, I enjoy the event, but I kind of use it as that social thing for afterwards as well.
Yeah.
I think at Western Saturday night we ended up going to, I can't remember what the place was called. It was some kind of arcade place
Yeah. But yeah,
with a bowling alley. But yeah,
sports
I mean
venue. Yeah.
we were there till like what 1 o'clock or something like that, and it's a good night. I mean, I don't know for you, but for me, I do a lot of traveling with work, so just to be able to be social like that and unwind and
Yeah.
you know, talk to the people face to face like you get on with online. It really makes it rather than I don't. I'd been to events during the day and then just packed up and fucked off. And
Yeah.
yeah, you don't really take much away from it other than, yeah, I've sold all right or I haven't sold all right. And that's
And
pretty
it's
much it.
hard it is hard during the day once, once we're manning our tables, isn't it, to actually
Oh,
spend
yeah,
time to
yeah.
talk to each other because, if you
Yeah.
spend hours behind that table.
I don't think we spoke at all during the day,
No, we probably didn't actually, no.
but I didn't talk to quite a few people. It was more of just a passing, you're right, and that
Yeah.
and that's it. So to
And then
add
it's a
that bit on
shame.
at the end,
And then, yeah, yeah. But it's a shame that there's some people that do just, they're able to only just turn up and then leave straight away, that you then don't get a chance to have a chat with them.
yeah,
There's plenty of people that, writers that I've been, like I say, engaged with on social media that I've seen from across the room, but not yet actually gone, hello, it's me. How are you doing? And had that
yeah,
conversation. So try and put that
yeah,
right on the next one, I think. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Last one, mate. Very US question. Where in the US would you like to travel to? I don't. You may have already been to the US
I've,
in the
I've
past.
not actually.
No?
I've not. I've been to Canada. Because my wife's dad lives over there in Ottawa.
Okay.
But no, never been to America. And so in that sense, not choosy. I don't know enough about it to have favorite places. I mean, obviously there's the East Coast and West Coast that get all the coverage. But like I said, I wouldn't necessarily rule any place out because I don't know enough to say yay or nay. But
Yeah.
I would love to go and just experience. And I guess it must be quite different in different places. You got you got the big city and and the biggest cities, that kind of vibe, and then you've got such expanse of rural and sort of bare and barren, and if that's your thing, and these small communities, it very much feels like it's a country of geographical extremes in that sense. So I guess I'd want to see a bit of everything if I did go over, and not just think that my one experience of America was a hotel
Yeah.
in New York, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
no, I get that. I think I've never been prior to the book stuff, but
yeah,
whenever anybody said like, "Oh, well, where would you go over there?" It was just like Florida, because I haven't got a clue, or New York or Las Vegas. The stuff
yeah,
that you see on films. Um, but no, no, that's cool. Um, that's all I've got for you, mate. So
cool.
thank you very much for your time and giving up your Friday evening to answer the members' questions. As always, as well,
No,
it's
no
a
worries.
pleasure to talk to you as well.
No, great
Um,
catching up,
I,
Matt.
I always enjoy talking to you when we meet in person. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to do it. I will stop recording now.